while you give back. Today's episode is going to focus on service learning and social justice. You don't want to miss this. It is special things that we're going to do to make learning real, make it real life, give students natural consequences when necessary, and how they could learn how to give back and become better citizens, make their community better. Tune in for more.
Hi, thank you so much for joining the Falling for Learning podcast. We have this podcast to help parents and caregivers with having the resources, strategies, and tools needed to make sure that their children are on track for learning and to stay on track for success.
It's
Yes,
summer.
yes. We're
What
both
can
in
I
like our
say?
summer mode. Um,
Yes.
Lauren
Sleeping
is,
in.
yes, Lauren is like 3 weeks into her summer, and I'm like 1 week
Mm.
in. So I haven't totally like refreshed yet, but Lauren is looking refreshed and reset, and I'm feeling a little jelly, not a lot, but little, a little bit.
You'll get there. You'll get there. But you know what? It took me about 12 days before I could because I was still waking up early the first week. I was still having I need to be productive. And now I'm just like sleeping in, staying up, watching TV.
She's always all the way settled in.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I'm still like recovering, I would say.
Mm,
Just getting it together.
I get
Um,
it. Get it.
but we have been Netflix and chilling, and Lauren told me about a Netflix show that she watched. And when I say
Yes.
Netflix and chill in this case, it's just like you by yourself Netflixing, not with a date or anyone else like that.
Yeah.
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 So
It's
we live
our
in
version of it, which is literally in my PJs
yeah.
with my popcorn
hmm
and my
Individually,
dog
yes, no one else.
and watching a show that I love.
Okay.
Minding my own
So
business, being hydrated.
yes, and Lauren sent me this, not even a regular text message, like a voice text message,
Mm.
just full of emotion and, tell us about what you watched. Like, what was so moving about it?
Oh, wow. Okay. So this is a documentary. It is about a uh, maximum security prison system in Missouri,
Mm.
where the men there are learning to quilt as a way to give back to foster children. And the beauty of it is how this community of men have come together to do this very, I mean, when you think of quilting, I mean, the lady across the street from my parents, she was a quilter. I remember her with all her little needles and her thread and all her little patches of cloth, and she'd come up with these beautiful quilts. But I always thought that was something, little retired old women did. But here are these men who are serving long prison sentences that are
Mm-hmm.
doing this very out of the box kind of thing for them. And they are making the most beautiful quilts you've ever seen. And the passion that is going into them thinking about the design and thinking about the color scheme and how they want this to be, and the hours and hours and hours that they spend focused on making these quilts. And not only quilts, but weighted vests for children who are
Yes, that
autistic.
was really touching to me. Like, we
Yeah.
know that students, a lot of kids have, there's a population of students being identified with autism. And
Hmm.
these prisoners were making weighted vests for
Right.
children with autism. And so one of the
Hmm.
things, they were saying, and they were like knowledgeable about it because they were like, okay, this is
Right.
6 pounds, right? And this is going to be for a kid that's up to 60 pounds. And
Hmm.
so, at first when I'm thinking about this, I'm like, well, how are they doing this? Because you have to cut, you have to have needles and all of that. And they did show us that. Like, they have a kit that they have to check out. They have to,
Yeah.
all of those things that are in there, what they have to have a certain level of compliant or like not any like write ups or anything like that, for
Hmm.
them to be able to be in that isolated area to do
Yeah.
this crafting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're tools that in prison you would not want to give people access to sharp objects and cutting tools and you know things that could be used in a bad way. But because these men have shown themselves to be responsible and I guess it's rehabilitative in nature, and these men have qualified for this program, and just the care that goes into making sure that everyone is on board and doing the right thing is pretty remarkable. Because I think many of these men are serving maybe life sentences. Not They're not doing short stints. It's
No. Yeah.
pretty serious offenses that they're in jail for, but to see their work and their passion was so inspiring.
Yeah, and that really made, and we're talking about long sentences. Like one guy was saying how he was in for 20, since he was 20, I think he was 20, and then he was 64.
Hmm.
So, and he did commit a murder,
Yeah.
and he was like, there's nothing he can do about that. And he's like learned a lot over the years. And they're still doing their time and this is what they're doing. So when we're,
Hmm.
of course, we're Filing for Learning
Yeah.
podcast. So when we think about things, we think, we're both teachers. We think about like, how does this relate to our kids? And I was thinking about service learning, right?
Hmm.
Something that kids can do. And a lot of
Yeah.
high schoolers are required to do this before they graduate is give back to the community somehow. They need to do volunteer time. And even I know some middle
Hmm.
schools also require this. You need to do some type of volunteer work, before you graduate or culminate from middle school. Depends where you are, like what they want to call it, culminate or graduate or whatever. Um, and so this made me think about,
Hmm.
you know, what can we have our kids do that they are making and giving to someone in the community who needs it. And, and so that's, where I talked about it
Right.
and I was really thinking about it. What was your
Hmm.
perspective on what the prisoners were doing and relating it to what you do every day?
I think I've always believed in education that has some real world application. I mean, that's the whole point of education. And I think there are times when, as teachers, I know I've done it before, we don't really help kids see that real world application. And knowing that they're doing something that is going to benefit them, but not giving them the real scenario, not giving them that actual platform where they're actually doing the thing for the community and learning, is it can be a disservice. So
The Rewrite Method and the Rewrite Method Workbook are your go-to resource for helping kids to learn to fall in love with writing. It has the tips, tools, resources, strategies, and skill building activities to help kids fall out of writing hate and into loving to write. Get your book set today.
yeah, so I really love that idea of having something that's a product that the whole process is to serve someone else. And I just looked at how these inmates were learning so much about quilting, which I know was not something that they would have normally enjoyed as a pastime. Probably not. I mean, I don't know. But the amount of intentionality and the seriousness in which they approach these quilts was because it was for the service of someone else. So I think about my students and I think about ways that, in our school community, they can serve others. And, I have first graders, but we made posters and wrote letters to the fifth graders for the STAR test to tell them good luck on the STAR test. We hope you do great. We know you're ready. We know how hard you've studied.
Oh,
And that was so important for them to
yes.
be able to write. And they were so intentional about making sure that they were doing it in the correct letter writing format, and they were checking their spelling, and their
Yeah.
writing was so neat because they knew the audience was an actual real fifth grader that was going to really read this and really have some
Mm.
joy and hopefully some encouragement to do well on their STAR test. So yeah. What about what did you think? What do you think? And have you done anything in your classroom that relates to the whole service learning?
Yeah, I actually have when I had middle schoolers, they wrote letters, it wasn't a two-way communication, just to be clear, but they did write letters to kids who were incarcerated, just like
Mhm.
Christmas cards. They make Christmas cards to them.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
wasn't a two-way communication. They just wrote their first name. They didn't even say the school that they went to. Um, but they just gave them a Christmas card. Someone was thinking about them during the holidays. So that's an example
Mhm.
of service learning that they've done for others.
Mhm.
Um, the school where I was teaching, I didn't lead a lot of service projects, but I know that that school did collect money for kids and books. They donated books to other schools, like elementary schools and things like that.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of schools that participate in service learning. Um,
Mhm.
but I've done things here and there, but this really made me think about it. And what I really want to highlight is when you were talking about the audience, right? Because a lot
Right.
of times our kids just do stuff for us, right?
Right.
And that's the audience. But not even for us. They just feel like it's a piece of schoolwork. So it's not even really for Miss Mosley or for me, right? As their
Mhm.
teacher. It is, just something that they're doing.
Right.
But that intentionality, once they know the audience, like this is for your parents, kids. Like if educators out there want to know how to motivate kids,
Yes.
is whatever assignment that you give them, whatever project you give them a clear audience. And once you do
Yeah.
that, and an audience they care about, obviously, um, but it'll bring so much depth to what they do, right? Because if
Mhm.
you're writing this to the principal, you're writing this to the parents, you're writing this
Yeah.
to the congress person or
Right.
whatever, they will tailor that message for those people. If they're writing it
Mhm.
for their peers, like you're going to do this as a graduation speech or a culmination speech, whatever, they're
Yeah.
going to put in those pop culture references and things like that that relate to them. They'll know about it. But if, of course, if it's for the principal or something, they'll be more formal with their language. It will bring a level of quality to it,
Yes.
and specificity to it that
Mhm.
you wouldn't get by just saying, we're going to write a report on dolphins.
Right. Right.
So like that generic report is not going to give, like you're going to write a children's book. So this is what I did in elementary. When I was in middle school, we wrote we studied polar bears and we
Mhm.
wrote children's books. And I feel like I talked about this before on the podcast. I don't know. But we wrote children's books about this, and then we put it on we read it to our first grade kids. So I might have been in
Mm.
elementary
Yeah.
school, upper elementary maybe, and maybe not in middle school. I
Right.
don't even remember really, but I know we did that and we specifically wrote it for the kids. So we had to really make sure we made it interesting. We designed
Mhm.
the books, we illustrated the books, we made sure the language was there. It was a science fiction book, not science fiction,
Mhm.
nonfiction book that we wrote for the kids to give them information about polar bears. And it was, I love that project and I love going to
Yeah.
read it to the kids. Like we made books, we designed the books, the covers,
Mhm.
everything. So that's an example of service learning. Sometimes we think of service learning like these people need this, right? As far
Mhm.
as they need a weighted jacket if they're autistic, or they need a quilt because they're kids who are sick or they're, foster kids or something like that.
Mhm.
But sometimes service learning is just reading to a younger crowd, right?
Right.
So,
Right. Yeah, I had fourth grade one year, and we decided at the end, at the end of the school year when you're done with testing and they're still learning to do, but you want to make it so that the kids are really highly engaged because they're all ready for summer.
yes.
So we turned some folk tales into plays. And I didn't want to do costuming, and I didn't want to do a big set.
Yeah.
So it was really important for the kids to get in character. So we did this little folk tale, and I told them, I said, we're going to do this for the first graders, and well, the younger grades, first, second, third graders.
Yeah.
And so you guys have to, you got to really be into it because they're little kids, and anything you do, they're going to enjoy, but you got to really be into character. And to see these
Yes.
upper grade kids get into be chickens and geese and cows and mooing on stage and doing all this funny stuff. And when they performed for these first graders, they never forgot it. I mean, after that, they were like celebrities of the school, and they
Oh.
would see them down the hall and be like, "Oh, I remember you in that little play we did." And just, because, fourth and fifth graders are they're kind of too cool for school.
Yes.
But to know that they were going to do this for the little kids just gave them this new, level of, okay, we're going to ham it up and make it really fun. If I would have said they're just going to do it for each other, they probably would not have, like, this is dumb, we're not doing this. But yeah, the fact that they had a little audience that they knew would really appreciate it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Makes
So
all the difference. If you have not
made all.
tried it, try it out, right? Try it out.
Mm,
Um, I really want us to make the switch because part of what I thought about this too was the social justice aspect. Now,
yes.
these men were in prison, and
Hmm.
obviously part of them giving back was making some type of restitution for what they had, crimes they had committed, right? And
Yeah.
obviously our kids, we hope, they're learning now small lessons so they don't, they're
Hmm.
not getting to like really big crimes or anything like that, obviously in the future. But I think restorative justice, the concept of that is so important because really just, I have a principal who has said like if I were teaching, like when I started teaching, like I would be fired for some of the stuff because we really our hands are really tied. I don't know what it's like in Texas, but in California, like there are really like zero consequences, right? Like it's
Hmm.
as far as suspending kids, you can't put them in
Yeah.
a corner. You can't have them write standards like I will not run in the class or whatever. You cannot have them do like there's
Right.
so many things that you're not allowed to do anymore, which I know
Hmm.
like a lot of us who grew up in school, like we had to do all these consequences that we may have suffered, like not happening nowadays. So just so
Right.
you know,
Right.
if you don't know.
Right. Exactly.
Not
Yes.
happening. So
Mm-mm.
that's what made me think about restorative justice because sometimes our kids do things to other people, and then we would need to think about like, okay, well, you tore up someone's homework, you got upset with them, like what can you do to restore that?
Hmm.
And so that
Hmm.
also made me think about that, and for us to really talk about it on the podcast, natural consequences and restorative consequences, to help our students learn their lessons, because one thing we know for sure is that zero consequences are very harmful for kids. It is very
Yeah.
harmful for them. They keep pushing the
Yeah.
limits. Like that's what we do
Right.
as humans. Like we'll push the limit, you know?
Hmm.
Kids definitely do that until they learn lessons. So
Right.
we don't want to be
Right.
harmful to them. We want to make sure that we
Right.
think about what they can do to restore someone that they've harmed or something that they've harmed. Um,
Right.
yeah.
Right. Yeah, I had an incident this year even where I had a kid who threw a fit of rage and just, broke the screen on his Chromebook.
Yeah.
And he was mad. And so, we had extra Chromebooks, so he could have very easily, we could have just said, "Hey, we're going to give you another Chromebook."
Yeah.
But we said, "You know what? We're going to have to take the Chromebook, take it to the Chromebook doctors so they can fix it." and then you're going to have to wait for it to come back. And all that period of time, he was very upset he didn't have his Chromebook. But we kept reminding him, yeah, you don't have a Chromebook because, well, when you got angry, you broke it, remember? So that's why you don't have one. And we just got to wait for it to get fixed. And so every day he's like, is it fixed yet? I'm like, oh, no, it was really broken. So we're going to have to go through a lot. We ended up having to replace it, obviously. But just that whole idea that he had to wait for such a long time before we could give him a new one. You know, at one point he was saying, man, I should not have broken my Chromebook. So the natural consequences of him not having a Chromebook for so long started to kind of click. You know, I didn't have to do anything extraneous.
Right.
He just didn't have a Chromebook. That was like a very natural consequence for him.
Yeah.
Um, and when he did finally get another Chromebook back, which it was weeks and weeks and weeks later, he
Mm.
was like so careful. And when he got angry, we got him a little squishy that he could squish. So he would definitely think about throwing his Chromebook and then go get his squishy. So I just think of, you know, things that are natural consequences are very important too. And when we think about restorative justice, I don't know, have you ever heard of this tradition? I want to say it's an African tradition where when someone in a community has done something wrong, they gather around the individual and everyone in the community tells them something about who they speak very affirming words into the person. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but they literally tell the person the things that they want them to believe about themselves. Like,
Okay.
you know, you are kind, you are nonviolent, you are, you know, speaking words of affirming, you know, words of affirmation. And I've done that in my classroom as well. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. I don't
I
even know.
haven't.
I think I saw it on a commencement speech. Someone was telling the story of this tradition, and I thought, oh my gosh, I love that idea.
That is great because I know one of the things about um, when someone does something wrong is a lot of times they also have, and this they talked about this in the Netflix show as well, like forgiving yourself, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then also believing that that's who you are, right?
Yeah.
I am a person who does this kind of thing. I'm a thief, I'm a murderer, whatever it is, right?
Right.
Um, and not getting better or not doing different things. Like these are the choices that I make, and I'm going to continue to make these choices. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's really stands out to me. I haven't heard of this practice that you're talking about, but
Mm-hmm.
it really helps to heal that person. And then for them to, to take on the the positives about themselves and
Yes.
to continue to do positive things instead of take on the persona of I did this bad thing. I am a bad person and I'm
Right.
going to continue to kind of make those type of choices. So it
Right.
is a way of undoing the harm that they've done to themselves
Mm-hmm.
because that
Yeah.
is another thing we don't think about often. We think about the harm they did to others. We don't think about the harm they did to
Mm.
themselves.
Right, right. And I think making that clear distinction between you did a bad thing, but you're
Mm-hmm.
not a bad person. You just did
Right.
a thing that was not good and it had negative consequences.
Yes.
But you are not a bad person and you can make different choices. So
Yes.
I love and especially laying that out for kids and practicing it, I think creates a very tolerant community. Because I think with my kids, I need my whole class community to help me with students who have problematic behavior. It can't just be me.
Yeah, that's a
You know,
good point. They
whole
could tear
community.
apart. Yes, they could tear apart a
Yeah.
classroom, stop the
Hmm.
learning, right? And we
Hmm.
don't have very much recourse as teachers.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So when they're in those interactions, they're having those moments where the kids know how, because you can create an environment where all the kids know who the bad kid is,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
And you
Mm-hmm.
don't want that to be a part of your classroom community. You want the kids all to have to rally around kids who have problematic behavior and help support them. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's one of the things I've seen, like this one kid that I'm telling you about through his Chromebook, like by the end of the year, he had so much support. He had so much consideration. And I think it started to mirror, he started to mirror what he was seeing. So there was lots of forgiveness for him and there was lots of mercy for him. And so he started to respond and carry himself in a way where, his incidences that happened throughout the day were getting, lesser, just fewer and fewer incidences each day, to the point where I had very little to report to the counselor, on a regular basis. And just to see, that restore that idea of speaking affirming words into students, and to help them see that your behavior is not who you are, is so, so important.
I love that. I'm definitely gonna like steal that idea and then, because you're right. I've definitely had years where there's students who had like really, severe behavior problems, and it just escalates, right? Especially as a new teacher, you don't know what to do. You're basically doing the wrong thing, but you're saying like bringing in the whole community to help say positive things
Mhm.
and give them support and all of that is
Yeah.
a way to undo that and give them a supportive environment, because it does turn into the other kids are like,
Hmm. Yeah.
Joshua's bad. He's a bad kid,
Right.
and running to you to tell you like, oh, Joshua did something again, or
Yeah.
I don't want to play with Joshua. I've even seen kids like, I'm
Hmm.
not taking that student to the rest. We have the buddies going to the restroom like, he
Hmm.
caused too many problems in the bathroom. I'm not taking him. So just like he's like, I gotta go to the restroom. It's like, and we're all
Right.
and several
Right.
kids are like, I'm not taking him. It's
Hmm.
like, yikes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And
turning that on
and
its
again,
head.
right, yes. And I think also the natural consequences of things, even when you tell kids, hey, the natural consequences of you know, throwing things at other kids is that they are not going to want to sit near you because you are causing chaos. So that's a natural consequence, and
It
not that
is.
they're doing that because they don't like you or because you're a bad person, but because they don't want to be a victim, and so they're going to remove themselves, and that's a natural consequence.
It
And
is.
they understand that, and then they're like, okay, so if I want friends, and all kids want to be accepted and have relationships,
Yes. Absolutely.
it helps them think, slow down a little bit, and start using those tools that we're trying to give them to make different choices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That I just feel like that's such a gem that you just shared with us. So take it down, guys. Building,
Yes.
just speaking positive. Yeah, a lot of people have that practice where they have like a restorative circle or something like that, and
Hmm.
trying to build that child up, because a lot of it does, we always hear, I don't, hurt people, right? I'm hurt, I'm angry, I'm feeling a certain way, so I could come in
Hmm.
and make you feel bad by saying something negative to you, or
Yes.
pushing you because I feel, so it's a way of acting out because I'm already hurt inside, so I'm just going to find
Hmm.
something negative to say to you or push you or whatever it is, and
Yeah.
trying to have some healing there for the child, and then
Hmm.
also talking to them about natural consequences.
Yes.
I do want to say, parents, sometimes I find parents are very, very protective of their children, and
Hmm.
they don't want them facing any consequences, natural or other. And I'm just going to let that stay there. Just
None of our
reflect.
parents, of
Just
course. It's none of
reflect
our
is that
parents.
it is very harmful for kids, and I know I have, as a mom, definitely given my daughter consequences that kind of hurt
Hmm.
me, right? Like, I can't
Yeah.
go out now because she's not going where, you know what I
Right.
mean, or whatever it is, right? Whatever it is,
Hmm.
like, oh, I feel bad, I
Hmm.
wanted her to do this, but she did this
Right.
when I told her not to.
Right.
And so that it is what it is. So,
Hmm.
or then,
Hmm.
people like being lashing out at someone who says, okay, your child has a natural consequence, or your child, they don't want their kid to feel any discomfort or anything like that.
Right.
But I would just say it really just leads to kids being be getting to a situation where we don't have control, where
Yeah.
eventually the police are taking over, or they've committed a crime or
Mhm.
whatever. It's not just
Mhm.
a push for some. They've actually punched someone, and that person broke their nose or whatever, right? So situations
Right.
get out of control because we
Mhm.
didn't want them to face the natural consequence when they push someone and now they're breaking
Mhm.
people's noses or whatever. So
Yeah.
just, part of the Falling for Learning podcast, obviously, like, reflect. Is that
Yes.
you? Are
Reflect.
you preventing your child from having consequences, because it does not bode well for their future, unfortunately.
Right. Yeah. That is such a good point. Yes. I always tell my kids, be a bucket filler, not a bucket dipper. We all have we all have we all have these buckets. Everyone has an invisible bucket. And every time you are, being intentional and communicating positively, you are literally putting wonderful things in that person's bucket. We want to always fill up people's buckets. We don't want to be the kind of people who are literally emptying out people's buckets by not giving our kids what they need so that they can come and interact with their classmates in a way that is respectable and considerate. So I always tell my parents, just we would just want to help. We just want to help your son or your daughter be bucket fillers and not bucket dippers.
Absolutely. We thank you so much for joining us today on season 3 of the Falling for Learning podcast. Do something today that gives your child the competitive advantage. Thanks for joining us.
Yes.
The Rewrite Method and the Rewrite Method Workbook are your go-to resource for helping kids to learn to fall in love with writing. It has the tips, tools, resources, strategies, and skill building activities to help kids fall out of writing hate and into loving to write. Get your book set today. Thanks again for supporting the Falling for Learning podcast. New episodes go live every Saturday at 5 p.m. You can watch us on youtube.com at Falling for Learning, or listen on all major podcast platforms such as Apple, Google, Audible, Spotify, and much more. For more resources, visit fallinginlovewithlearning.com. We really appreciate you. Have a wonderful week.
Yay!
Yay.
So today we're going to talk about I don't know.
The
We're
Netflix show Quilters and how it relates to learning.
we're going to talk about, but I want to give the topic first though. We're going to talk about social justice, or service learning.
Restorative justice. Service learning. Okay, service. I've never heard it called
Service
service.
learning and restorative justice.
Service learning.
Okay.
Okay.